Hello, Hockey Nation and Pucks and Dreams followers. As you may have heard a couple hours ago, the much disgruntled and benched Pierre-Luc Dubois has been traded from the Columbus Blue Jackets to the Winnipeg Jets for two other fairly disgruntled players. One who's on the IR, the player drafted ahead of him in the same draft, Patrick Laine, and Jack Roslovic. So what do you think of this trade? Are you surprised that it finally happened? I think there's a lot of needless drama around it, and it just got to the point where, it was a little bit crazy. I'm curious to see Pierre's reaction to this. It's interesting for me. I think that actually, in some ways, trying to figure it out because Winnipeg already traded and got Paul Stastny to play with Patrick Laine. And so now you're bringing in basically a number one center, and you've already got Mark Scheifele. So I'm trying to figure out how this is going to work. Are they realizing that Paul Stastny is better suited to a third line role? Jack Roslovic would be a great center, but obviously he was holding out. So it's a little bit strange. Pierre just messaged me. Let's see if we can invite him on. I don't know if he's busy. It's so strange. And then, I think Pierre just made a comment to me that, it's strange because Columbus doesn't have a number one center now. But then they got like a top line winger. So who plays center for them? But I think Jack Roslovic's going to play center for them. Now, is Jack Roslovic a number one center? It seems pretty much that he's not. But, maybe he's a real good number two. I think a lot of teams were looking at Roslovic. He did play with that U.S. development class with Austin Matthews, and he's a pretty good-sized player, and he's got talent. So I don't know. I think he can play second line in the NHL. Is he a first-line center? Maybe not, but maybe he defaults to a number one center with Columbus. They've made weird moves like this before. Just think back when they traded number one centerman Ryan Johansson for essentially what became a number one D with Seth Jones. So here we are back to the future again on this. So I don't know. It's kind of a crazy set of moves. I'm trying to think of how all the pieces. Yeah, Domi is now the number one center. Like that doesn't make any sense. It's because he's been doing so well, right? What is he playing? 12, 13 minutes a game. Maybe they move Patrick Laine to center. He's been known to take some faceoffs. I'm trying to think of how this works out for Columbus overall, but I don't know. I think between Domi and Roslovic, it'll be fine at center. Domi's got a lot to prove. He has not shown so far that he can consistently do the job. But between the two, they're probably all right. I mean, if you think of how they do a lot of things by committee, I think Jack Roslovic can probably produce a lot better offensively than he has in the past. And Domi's shown at some point that he can produce offensively, but he's just never been consistent. And he's kind of a talented player that does his own thing. So, it's kind of crazy. I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but you definitely think Patrick Laine is a top player. But then you look at Winnipeg and they got three crazy centermen down the middle. Is that what they wanted? I don't know. I mean, you got Paul Stastny now. Is he going to go to the wing? Is he going to go to the third line? Dubois, you got to think. Scheifele, is he going to go second line? There's no way. That doesn't make sense. So I don't know. I've never liked. I know there was discussion about this before it happened. I was not a big fan of this. Laine is a steal. I mean, in a sense, he's a steal, right? Because you get a centerman, and you get in Roslovic. I think he can totally play center on a consistent basis on the second line. And I think he thought that, and that was probably part of his problem in Winnipeg, because he was consistently getting buried in the wing or on the third or fourth line. And he's a talented player. He's good size, but he's a talented player. So he gets an opportunity in Columbus to show that. They get a fairly reasonable contract at an average of 1.9. Laine's legit shown. He's like, he can score 40, 50 goals in this league. There's no problem. I bet you he can score a goal a game. I mean, he's just that type of player. You don't think he'll stay in Winnipeg? Maybe. He's from Quebec. I don't know. I just think he didn't feel that he was respected there. But how does he fit in Winnipeg? Like, you're not going to trade Shifley. Like, Shifley is a top 10 or 12 centerman in the NHL, in my opinion. Like, and then Wheeler hasn't really been lighting it up lately, but he's still a very big, talented player. So then you got, again, I think Paul Stastny's probably less of an issue. I think Paul Stastny moving to the third line or the wing is probably what's going to happen. Although it's a little weird. He's never been a big offensive juggernaut. I think Dubois will do real well, but who's he going to, he's got wingers to play with. So I guess if we think about this, do you end up with, oh, my general manager's calling, so I'm gonna answer this. But what do you think about this deal?